What's good, YouTube? Finally, back here, providing a video, going ahead, and I wanted to talk about, as you can see here on that top right corner, we got Tekken God Supreme. I know I've been kind of just away from the YouTube videos and stuff like that, but we still kind of play every now and then whenever we get the chance to. But with that being said, I wanted to come back in here and kind of share some insight as to how I achieved that rank with King and how could that be possible for you, right? Especially, let's say if you're someone struggling and maybe in the purple ranks, blue ranks, you're at Tekken King, Tekken Emperor, but just can't quite get that push above to Tekken God and so on. If you're already at Tekken Emperor and such, this video probably isn't for you, but maybe just stick around. You could probably still gain some knowledge here, right? So with that being said, I kind of wanted to just go into the emphasis on working around these ranks and applying that to King specifically, right? So the thing with King is his game plan, he's like a counter hit grappler, right? And he's meant to really condition your opponents because you want your opponents to stand up. You want your opponents to not duck because of the fact that King tends to be very vulnerable to ducking in certain situations, especially when he's plus. A lot of times, believe it or not, if you decide to go for his very obvious plus frame setups, your opponent's gonna duck and you're gonna die for it, right? So how are we gonna avoid that, right? So he's meant to condition a lot of his opponents. You want to condition your opponents to stand up so you can go ahead and release those devastating throws, right? But you want to use those throws very intentionally, right? You want to use those throws in a very particular manner. You don't want to go, and a lot of people, I'm going to say this now so I can just get this out of there so I don't forget it. A lot of people want to go into back 1-2 into grab, back 1-2 into shining wizard, right? Or 4-4 neutral 2 into this, right? Or 4-4 neutral 2 into like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to make ourselves obvious, especially too in the beginning of the game. If we're going ahead, we're playing a neutral around here, and then we're like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I want plus frames. Oh, neutral 2. All right, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that, right? So we want to avoid that, right? Let's talk about his strengths, and this is going to be leading into how we condition your opponent to make sure you stand up, right? To make sure your opponent stands up here. He's a big power hitter, right? This character is really not meant to really enforce 50-50s like Jin or Kazuya, Raven, Horong. I think Paul is a good example to kind of compare King, right? Kind of, right? But I'm not a Paul player particularly. But they kind of operate the same whenever I pick up the two. However, yeah, King is not that kind of character here. So what you want to do is you want to condition your opponents with mids, right? You're going to start off with an elbow, right? Great mid. This is a great mid right off the back because one, it's an elbow. So that means it can't be generic reversed or parried. So this is a great follow-up for against Asuka. If you're playing an Asuka that has really like heavy leaning towards parries, reversals, and stuff like that, or doing like cans, or just flipping out the way, you know, as many Asuka players do, elbow is straight down, and it catches people who like to hop kick or jump up in the air because it's going straight down and it's putting them towards the floor. The beauty about this move too is the fact that it has an extension, right? Super delayable extension at that too. Super delayable, and you're only minus 10. Only minus 10. Let me actually go ahead and fix the display settings here. Let's see. Okay, yep, I want you guys to see how minus you are and how plus you would be too, right? So yeah, let's see. So if you delay the first hit and the first hit isn't counter hit, the second hit is a natural. But if you go ahead and kind of see that it counter hits, it kind of leans into a natural 2-string combo, which is nice. 33 damage for a counter hit. Super delayable, and it's super reactable too. Just look for the really long red vertical or diagonal line, depending on how the opponent or how your counter hit effect is, right? Just look for that. And then if you delay it, if you max delay it, you're not gonna get the follow-up, right? But if you delay it and you can kind of just see it, that's going to be guaranteed for you. And to make sure, I have my practice settings on block all. So anything that's not natural, and this is something that you should do too, anything that's not natural, make sure you go to your practice settings and make sure you put block all, because that's going to tell you what's natural, what's not natural, right? So in this case, we know for a fact that if we delay down forward 1 on counter hit, that gives us the full string. And this leads up to the next counter hit delayable confirm string, which is a big one, arguably one of the best mids in the game. One of the best, not the best, but one of the best. Down forward 2. Super delayable counter hitting confirm mid high string that leads into a combo. The thing is, on normal hit, they can go ahead and duck it. Now you can see it's a high, so let's not, make sure we're not throwing that out randomly just for the, oh, I want a combo, I want down 4-2, I want to, no, that's not what we're doing. What you got to do, and this is how you kind of hone in your fundamentals, you want to look for that delay, right? So delay, actually, my counter hit effect actually went away, so watch. Super delayable, super delayable. And if you want to practice like getting the timing right, what you can do is you can go to player counter and you can do shuffle, right? And that's going to tell you which one is and which, or that's going to have to train your eyes to see which one is and isn't a counter hit. So that's not a counter hit, that was a counter hit. See, that was a counter hit, right? See, then that wasn't. So you start to see the difference in the line. The really long vertical line is a counter hit. The short little red burst is just a normal hit. So make sure you practice that so you can really go ahead and get those confirmations in. Right? So there's a really, really great mid there. And you want to make sure you want to hit confirm that, right? Practice delaying those moves. Practice delaying down forward 1 and down forward 2. Even after plus frames, right? After plus frames, let's go ahead and down forward 2, right? You want to just use a mid. You don't want to go ahead and immediately go for a high. Just condition them with mids. It's a mid, right? So just use it. The mid, 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 mid. And then the next mid I want to talk about too is his forward 4. Forward 4 is probably also a really, really great mid homing move. It does have its flaws though. And what are those flaws? It takes some commitment to actually go ahead and get it started, right? So in this case, it's a 18 frame mid, right? And he can be floated out of it, unfortunately. So we were to go ahead and do the practice settings, and then go to defense, record. Right? So we were to do something like that, and this is something that you probably shouldn't follow up with either. If you time it just right. Let's see. You see that? He gets floated out of it. For potentially some big damage too, right? So that's something you don't really want to go for in certain scenarios, right? However, 4-4 for Oki, right? So for when your opponent is on the ground, that's some that I can't really explain it, but it's just that good. It's just that good. So if we were to go and we do the ground technique, right? If we do ground technique, wake up, not set, or if we do the wake up side roll, right? So let's take that off first. Let's do the side ukemi first. So yeah, you see how he does the ukemi on that side? Let's see. Actually, no, this is a bad example. Hold on a second. Let's do it after a power bomb. So he's gonna want to go ahead and do the side roll, right? You see how that actually catches? It's gonna catch all the time if they want to wake up backwards, I think. So we know it works for the ukemi on the left and right side. If you want to make sure, we can do it on the right side too. See that? Change this up too. And basically what 4-4 is gonna do is gonna be the mid that makes your opponent want to not do certain things. For an example, your opponent's not going to want to press certain things. Your opponent is not going to resort to his habits that's gonna allow him to get up safely. It's gonna have to make him flip a switch all of a sudden to be like, oh snap, the things that I normally do aren't working all of a sudden, right? And it's not until you get into the really high ranks, as far as like Tekken King and above, where some people are gonna knowledge check you with forward, right? However, forward regardless is a great move because of the fact that it has such a low hitbox. After power bomb, and they do anything except not press nothing. And occasionally, if they do like a stand up, like they do against like Dragunov situation, his back 4-2 into the quarter circle 4, forward is gonna hit all the time. Great move to do afterwards, right? We keep talking about his counter hitting tools here. He has some strings, some knowledge checks that you want to do, although they're susceptible to certain things. So just make sure that you recognize that King's weak side is his left side, right? So remember, I'm player 2, so the side that's facing us, that's his weak side. So if you're playing on player 1, or if you're playing on player 2 and you're facing a king, his weak side is going to be his left. So you're going to want to step this, right? You're going to step this way. Now, the only move that catches that step, his weak side, is down forward 3. Another great mid, right? Another thing too is if you can confirm it, that's guaranteed. Nice little string. That's a little bit nice little flair to add. If you can hit confirm that string, that's really fun to do. Really fun to do. But that move will catch his weak side, right? So just be aware of that. Great mid if you don't want to commit to a bigger mid. That's something I learned from Little Majin, so I don't want to take the credit for that. But you know, due to the fact that forward 4 can be captured, you can catch forward 4 to float out of a heat starter, right? So you can be floated out of that, and it's 18 frames, right? So you can do down forward 3, less commitment, 14 frames, but just be wary that it doesn't track to his strong side. So if we were to go ahead and do that again, here, you can die for that. So just be very wary of that. But 9 times out of 10, strong opponents are going to want to step King's weak side, and they will understand that he has down forward 3 to catch that weak side, and people will mix up their steps. So you don't want to use that as a one size fits all solution, right? So you want to really be careful with that, right? So now let's talk about who he is, right? He's a grappler. So how do we enforce these grabs here? A lot of the times we are going to enforce those mids that we want to talk about relentlessly, right? We want to enforce those mids like he has no highs. You want to constantly do down forward 1, right? Constantly down forward 1, constantly down forward 2. Another mid that you want to do is forward 1. Another great mid option, right? That's a homing as well. It's a little bit, he kind of lunges in. It's one of his longest mids, one of the longest mid homing moves that he has to wind up. But the beauty of this move is that he's not floating. It's a really good like homing move that's like really nice and centered. And it's a combo start, or not a combo starter too, but y'all know what I mean. But it's a good bread and butter as well, is what I was trying to say. And what's cool about this move is that if you get counter hit, nasty follow-up damage. You always want to go for that the people's elbow after counter hit, because that's going to be your guaranteed damage. You don't want to be put in a situation where, oh, I wanted the grab, right? Which does 53 damage compared to what was that? I didn't get to see the math on that. 25, 24, 11. 25, 24, 11 is for 49. What is that? About 25. 25 times 25 is 50 minus 1. That says 49. 49 plus 11 is 9, 10, 4, 60 damage. You actually get more damage doing that. Okay, so yeah, don't bother going for the grab. If I'm doing my math right, you get more damage doing this. And how do you do that, right? So I am playing on stick. Disclaimer, right? So I'm button buffering a lot of my options here, but basically what you want to do is people's elbow is down 2 plus 3, So down, triangle plus square. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead. Do I have it on shuffle? I do. Okay. Once you can capture, once you see the counter hit, dash in, just dash, right? Just forward. You don't have to keep holding forward until you get to the character. Dash, people's elbow, and then you want to throw an alley kick at the end. Alley kick is pretty much guaranteed right there. That does for 60 damage. Great mid as well. And you want to keep harassing your opponent with these mids because you want to get them to not duck, right? You don't want to duck. You don't want them to duck because a lot of characters, a lot of players tend to duck king because they don't want to deal with the grab mix-up. And, you know, that's pretty telling in itself due to the fact that if you have opponents that are willing to duck king, like, on the spot, that actually tells you that they're not confident in their throw breaks. So you want to do everything in your possible power to enforce those throws on your opponent, especially if you know that they don't want to deal with the throw breaks, right? So again, we have forward 1, we have down 2, and again, down 2 captures a lot of people pressing because if you see the really long red vertical line, that is your combo starter. So a lot of the down 2 is going to be the move that you want to use to make sure after every plus frame follow up, if it's forward 1, down 2, if it's what else? He has this too, that you can do that as well. Couple of other things, you know, down 3, you could do down 4-2, and basically you want to really use that as like your go-to option for the most part because of the fact that it tracks pretty well, tick confirmable counter hit launcher, right? And lastly, one of the bigger mids is this one, forward 4-2. And if you are like me who actually had a lot of trouble wondering, how do you use this move? It's a 31 frame move. It takes forever. It's super steppable, like in a sense where now is it steppable on reaction? I don't know about that, right? But it has no tracking, like absolutely none. And you guys are gonna see here, no tracking, and a lot of the times too, even during miss inputs, this move can actually cost you a match, man. Like, this move is weird, right? But why do you want to use this move? Why am I telling you like you still should use it? Because of the fact that what that gives you the RKO, oh no, the pedigree for free on hit and on block. Hold on. Oh, it's too long. On block, he's +7 on block, right? That +7 is gonna pretty much not gonna allow your opponent to step. He's not gonna be able to step as well after that unless he has a super evasive move, right? He's not gonna be able to step. He's gonna have to completely pretty much guess what you're gonna do next unless he has a super hard read, right? So after 4-4-2, you can go for 4-3, which is another great mid. Like, you see how long the list of mids I'm going through right now with King. We also have 4-3. So after 4-4-2, you can use 4-3 as a follow-up. And then remember, you can add 1+2 to add that stunner effect as well. Great Oki. Right? And then after you get through all your mids, right? And then you're like, okay. You're not ducking anymore, right? Then you want to go ahead and enforce the throws. Right? That's when you want to go ahead and start that. But after a while, you're going to want to really, you're going to unfortunately give up your turn to really have your opponent want to like not duck, right? So after forward 4, back away. After forward 4, you're -9, back away. After forward 1, kind of back away, you're -5. Play around the frames there. After down 4-3, you're -9, back away. You see what I'm saying? So he loses his turn a lot of the times that he goes for the mids. So the mids that make you want to not duck, if you block them, you get your turn back for the most part, except for maybe the exception of 4-4-1 and forward forward 2, right? So be wary of that, right? So as well, now that we've got ahead and talked about the mids, and then that's when you want to go ahead and enforce the grabs, let's talk about the grabs real quick. Let's kind of get into detail with the grabs. How do you make your grabs really effective, right? Especially with King. What you want to do is you want to play around the giant swing input, right? You really want to play around the arms, right, of what giant swing input is. So as we all should know, right, and if you're not aware, it's probably a great opportunity for you to. The arms are what's going to be your biggest giveaway on what button you should press in order to break the throw. For the most part. For the most part. Not all the time is that true though, right? And King is a perfect example. I think the only example in Tekken 8 as of right now, I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that, but I want to say if not the few characters that can disguise his grabs. So normally when you see this, right, when both arms come out, that's a 1+2. If the left arm comes out, that's a 1 break. If the right arm comes out, that's a 2 break. And don't confuse it. We're like, oh, if I just see the homing flare, then that means that I just break. No, right? Because he doesn't have that. For his command throws, he doesn't have that, right? Right? So we know that if this comes out, the left hand is going to be a 1 break. Right hand is a 2 break. And then both hands is a 1+2 break. Same for a Shining Wizard. You want to break that with 1+2. However, for a giant swing, that's different. Whole different story. As you can see, giant swing comes out with both hands, but you press 1 to break it. So that right there automatically disguises the break. Because now your opponent doesn't really truly know if you're going to do a 1+2 or a 1 break. And get this gets even nastier. This gets even nastier because guess what? You can disguise that with his chain throws. And if you want to, wave dash into a giant swing. Because then you can disguise that with your chain throws, because guess what, your opponent is like, oh he's wave dash, he's gonna do a giant swing, right? No, I'm not, because now I'm gonna do a 2 break, put you on the floor, and then I could do whatever I want with them legs because you thought I was gonna do a giant swing, right? Same here. Oh, wave dashing, he might be doing a command throw. Let me get ready to press 1 or 2. No, Shining Wizard. That's a 1+2 break. So right there, this is a mix. And mind you, the giant swing is 10 frames. 10 frames. So honestly, you want to use it as like your counter hit tool, right? Instead of using jab to, for the most part, instead of using jab to check your opponents, you can use giant swing to check your opponents. And guess what? If it's a counter hit grab, good luck breaking it. Good luck. Right? So immediately, we don't know if we're going to do a giant swing. We don't know if we're going to do a Shining Wizard. And we don't know if we're going to do a command throw or a chain grab. That's a 1 or 2. So essentially, instead of being a 50-50 mix-up, you're essentially putting your opponent in a 33-33-33 mix-up. So that's basically a 99% chance total. They have a 33 pretty much percent chance to break a throw, right? So insane big damage once you do condition those opponents there, right? Lastly, let's talk about his armored moves. His armored moves are probably the best armored moves in the game. I'm confident in that he probably has the best armored moves in the game, and he also has the best. I'm careful to call it a stance. Really careful to call it a stance, but he has one of the best armors that come in through that stance when he's in heat. So the first armor that you have is back 3. That's a high, pretty linear, 16 frame startup, only -10 on block. You know, great option. So if for an example, if we want to go ahead and do this right here real quick, right? Start recording. All right, typical startup right there. Let's see if that's a frame trap. I don't think I did it right. See that? Easy. And 33 damage. 33 damage. Nothing really guaranteed after that, but really good damage right there. He also has this up forward 3+4. I feel like this is a little bit of an underrated move, because you actually have you could do different options out of this. Hold on a second. Let's see. Can we do up forward 2? Yeah, still works. Still works. Right? Pretty underrated move. Why do I say that? So, on hit, it goes into his Jaguar dash, right? And then what you can do is if you hold back, he doesn't go into it. And that leaves him plus 22. Right? If you cancel it. And if you don't cancel it, he's plus 25. And the reason for that being is because of the fact that they get knocked back on the floor, and your opponent doesn't visually have enough time to set his character up to avoid his options. So when you go for this, you want to immediately pull the trigger on whatever option that you're going for if you go into stance. So if you go into this, immediately go into that. Immediately go into elbow 1. Into the guaranteed people's elbow. If you're going into his high, you immediately go into that. And I want to talk about how to use his high more effectively, right? Because I don't see a lot of King players use that. A lot of King players want to go ahead and they want to use this, or they want to use this. Mind you, the RKO is reactable. It is reactable. So people will duck you on reaction for it. So that's why you have to enforce this mix up here, putting them on the floor to get the most out of your reward, right? You got to really reap that reward. You got to really put yourself out there immediately, right? And then if you don't want to go into the stance transition, if your opponents are really strong in dealing with the stance transitions, don't go for it at all. Just go ahead and hold back, take your plus 22, all right? And then you could do a Shining Wizard. You could do a Giant Swing. You could just do an elbow, you know what I'm saying? So now he has the option to make it even completely safe when the move lands, right? Obviously, it is minus 12, so just be careful. But still, minus 12 ain't bad. Minus 12 is not bad. You know, I'll take minus 12, right? It's not minus 13, minus 14, right? So we talked about back 3. We talked about up 4, or up 4, 3+4. Now let's talk about his armor when he's in heat. Actually, hold up, before we even get there, we also got muscle armor. Muscle armor, right? Muscle armor is probably busted right now. I am in 100% agreement that it needs nerfs. I could see it getting the Steve treatment. I would highly recommend that if you do go into muscle armor next balance patch, that he has to at least commit to it, like Steve has to commit into his flicker stance. You know, maybe he's vulnerable. Maybe add a counter hit effect to it, because there's, in my opinion, there's no reason why there's nothing, you get nothing for that, for the most part. The only time you get something is if King actually decides to do something out of it, right? But if he does nothing, oh wait, that's because I'm on counter hit. Hold up, am I on counter hit? Wait a second. Yeah, no, something's wrong here. Hold up. Yeah, okay. So I gotta go into offense first. So that's okay. That's interesting. So make sure that's not set before you go into defense. Okay, interesting. All right, that was weird. So he goes into muscle armor. You get nothing out of it, right? Also, too, another thing as well is if you have a read if you the king player has a read of like, oh, every time I go into muscle armor, he likes to go low. I can go and just cancel it into a duck. See, so it's kind of crazy to go through. So the best way to deal with the armor, his muscle armor, is to go ahead and just grab him. If you grab him, if you see him, if you have a good read, just grab him. He can't break any throw out of that. But then that's crazy. That is crazy. Hold on. Even if you have the read, you can die for it. Anyways, if you're a king player, use the move. Use the move. It is crazy. Right. So that's not even going into heat. Let's talk about what this move does in heat. So you can go into muscle armor. It's a launcher. Remember too, he's armored, so if you go through the whole string and he catches you with that, you die. So GG. As well, in heat, you can use muscle armor, right? And he would, if you go ahead and transition into his Jaguar dash, which is forward 3+4, he skips the whole animation of like when he points his finger out. He skips that whole animation to completely get into the armored effect immediately. So in normal, you see how he kind of pokes his finger out and he's like pointing at you like, yeah, you're about to, you know, play the game. You could just kind of grab him out of that super slow. But when he is in heat and he uses muscle armor, you know, GG, you know, for the most part. You just have to really respect it. You can grab him for the most part if he does drag out the dash. You can throw a quick low too to kind of disrupt him. You know, just be very, very careful with that. Just know that when he uses his armor, it does take, you know, a good amount of heat out of him. I mean, just look at his elbow 1. His heat meter is pretty much gone just by using one elbow, right? So just if you can make him bleed his heat, do it. That's probably gonna be the best way to kind of negate the armor move, right? But yeah, so in heat, Jaguar dash is armored. Another thing too is that with muscle armor and you transition to that, it becomes faster, right? And you can pretty much phase through attacks. And you really, when you go in heat, you really want to enforce this, right? You really want to enforce like, no, I really want to use either my elbow, I want to RKO you, I want plus frames. Because another thing too is that another move I don't really see a lot during his Jaguar dash is his the 2 option. Only because the fact that he's only +3, which is nothing really crazy, right? But in heat, again, when you're in armored, and again, we're kind of talking about the armored here, he's +6 now when he's in armored. Now, what does that look like at the wall? +18. +18. Because of the wall stun. And then you do whatever you want. You want to go for a mid wall splat? Go ahead. You want to go for a throw wall splat? So basically, go ahead and get him to the wall here. When you're in heat and he's going into his Jaguar dash, your opponent has to basically duck to save his life so he doesn't eat -18 frames, or he has to not duck to make sure he doesn't eat the elbow or the homing option as well, right? Really scary stuff. And also you get armored through it as well, so you got to be very careful. So really crazy move that when you actually start to work around the Jaguar dash. you start to utilize a lot more of King, because if you don't use the muscle armor, if you don't transition to the Jaguar dash, if you don't use the 2 option, if you don't use the 1 option, and then if you don't condition your opponents to do with the 4 option, because you want your opponents to duck, right, to get the biggest reward, right, you're only using half of the character. You're only using 50% of the character. And if you're using 50% of the character, how do you expect to go up and climb the ranks when your opponents are using 100% of the characters that they're using? You know, they have a toolbox. You're going in there with just a screwdriver and a flathead. That's not the best toolkit to have. So you got to use everything. You got to use all the tools. We've talked about his weaknesses. He's weak to sidestep left or sidestep right, so step his left side. His steps are really bad since he's a big body character. He doesn't have really good options to backdash or step, so you want to use his Jaguar step. But the thing is, Jaguar step, like forward 4, can get floated out too, especially Jaguar step. And the thing is, if you want a Jaguar step just to kind of get yourself out of a situation, and then for some reason a lot of people's heat engagers or like their heat starters tend to go 3 miles in to reach you, you're gonna get floated out of it. So just be very, very careful of your Jaguar step. But Jaguar step does add some nice options into there, so just play around with that. Like I said, a lot of players are going to want to duck King due to the fact that they don't want to deal with the throw mix-up. So that's why we got to condition them with all the mids that we have in our disposal to make sure that we keep them from not ducking, so we can go ahead and do those mids. One move I haven't really talked about a lot is forward 4 neutral 2, because of the fact that I think it's very self-explanatory. If you played this game, you've played against King. If you're a King main, you know what this move does. You know how annoying this move is. So just make sure you step the move. You really, really have to make sure you put emphasis on stepping the move, because if you don't step the move, like this move is going to give you such a hard time, right? And I do also want to not breeze over this move, because it is a big move that initiates his offense, right? Because he doesn't have good lows, right? This is talking about a little bit more of his weaknesses, right? Down back 3 is super reactable for the most part. It's reactable to really good players. Then he has his alley kick, right, which is like a chunky round stealer low that's really far and high evades. However, it's -9 on hit. -9 on hit. It's not a mistake. Not -9 on hit. So that there's a purpose for that move. That move is meant to just end the round, get the damage, and back away. Because if you don't end the round with that move, you are in a really, really bad position, right? So just be very, very careful of that. You want to kind of steal rounds with that move, right? But again, on block, look what it is on block, fellas. -25 on block. You are dying for that, right? So you got to be very careful with that move. Very, very careful with that move. So his only really great moves that he has is down 3, which is only what, +1 on block. Nothing even crazy, just +1 on block. And then his best low is only one of the best lows for him is his neutral 2, forward 4 neutral 2, +5 on block. And you want to be very unpredictable with this. This is a tool. This is not your go-to option of like, oh, I want damage and I want counter hit. Like, no, this is a tool. If your opponent is really good at ducking mids, or excuse me, blocking mids and highs, you want to start conditioning them with the down ones, right? And then go right back to mids. And eventually, okay, mids, you're blocking that. You're blocking this. You're blocking this. Bam. Now I'm going to annoy you with that. And then you want to go right back to mids, right? So just keep that in mind. Don't get yourself predictable. It's also very steppable on top of that. Super, super linear. It has 0 tracking on that, right? Lastly, he doesn't really have that many good wall combos. like his wall damage isn't really good, so you're gonna have to kind of experiment with what works better. There's a few options that you have that you can do here. Some of these techniques aren't really mine. I've watched the John, I've seen his techniques and it works. I would just highly recommend you go for it, try it out. I saw another technique, it was actually really interesting, and this only works if they wake up. Let's see, if they try to wake up backwards. So let's try to get to the wall here. Oops. Wow, okay. I swear, it's because I'm recording for YouTube, I can't do the combos. Another thing too is I don't do this combo. All right, so right here, when you do this combo, right, that's usually the Shining Wizard input or the Giant Swing input at the wall. What happens is, I'm gonna go ahead and can I do a like remember thing here? Yeah, I'm gonna record the status here. So what happens is, you see how he kind of walks away from the wall? You don't have wall pressure anymore, so that's not really cool, but it not really serves my purpose, right? Now, if we were to go ahead and reproduce that, and if you add 1 plus 2, forward 1 plus 2, this move, and again, this was not my tech, so I saw it on Twitter somewhere, I can't remember it, but it's not my tech. But if you add forward 1 plus 2, you get a free back turn grab, which is crazy. Watch. Yeah. So you have to just immediately do it though. Right? Which is pretty cool, right? However, a lot of go-to combos, because you know that's very knowledge check. So if you want just guaranteed damage, you kind of want to just do something like this to also get into heat. $72 damage, pretty basic. You also have this too. $71. You see what I'm saying though? Like the combos are lacking. The combos are very lacking in damage when it comes to the wall combo, right? But the purpose of this move, doing the 4-4 at the end, it kind of just allows you to stay in the opponent's face and keep Oki, right? So that's a good alternative that you want to do at the wall. But yeah, like his wall Oki isn't the craziest, his wall damage isn't really the craziest, so, and prone to some misinputs, I can't lie, maybe it's just me, it's just a skill issue. Of course, as well, his armor is weak to grab, so the counterplay to the grappler is to grapple him, right? Ironic. Lows can disrupt the armor, so just keep that in mind. Last thing I want to talk about is when you are in heat. I know this is a powerful option here, right? I know this is super powerful, but the problem is when your opponent has rage, this practically loses to everything. So what you want to do is you want to kind of fake out you're about to do something, so you can just go ahead and back away and just block. Because they did add that, and I can't lie, it's a lot of people found that pretty annoying. But the thing is, before that patch, he lost to everything. Even if you didn't press nothing, even if you went into it by accident, you know, you died. You died if they pressed rage art, and people raged art because it worked 100% of the time. So they added the little dash in there, and it does add some sort of mind games to that, because a lot of the times if people go ahead and they get you with this and they block, that's a read. They're like, oh no, he's gonna rage art, you know, and they'll just go ahead and stop. Right? So just keep that in mind. But other than that, this is a video that kind of explained like what I found as my weaknesses and strengths with King, what his weaknesses and strengths are, and what allowed me to be really successful in reaching the rank. I'm really happy with where I'm at right now in Tekken 8. I pretty much have different goals now. I'm gonna start doing more tournaments. I'm gonna start focusing back on videos now, because now that I'm not really playing ranked, I think I'm gonna start doing more YouTube. It's almost like a sense of validation, you know? It's a sense of like credentials. Like I know when I first started Tekken, I seen people with ranks like that. I was like, man, how does he do that? I want to be like that, you know. So like, you know, with hard work and just a lot of just you really got to look at yourself in a sense of like, what am I doing wrong? And that's really hard to do. It's really hard to critique yourself. So just look at your replays, change your play style, and then lastly, take a break. If you're struggling in this game, stay away from this game for a week. I promise you it will do you good. Because I remember I did not play this game for 2 weeks, and I got back on with a fresh mind, and I hit Tekken God Supreme in an hour. Like, you know. So hopefully this kind of helps understand this, and this is really meant to be for King players to see like how can you get high up in the ranks with King. So yeah, much love to all the King players out there. Y'all that keep doing your thing. I know a lot of us get a lot of hate, but man, it does take work for us when we get up to these ranks. It does take a lot of work, man. So other than that, good luck to y'all. I hope this video is super helpful. Y'all keep doing your things and take care until the next video. Peace. And if I could find my mouse. There it goes.